I love it.
Crazy.
That's so cool. Yeah, your space looks pretty awesome. Looks very spacious.
Yeah, and we got a balcony. I just hit some hamstring like stretching yesterday in the sun. Got burnt, but
Yeah, you look a little red.
definitely red.
Well, cool, man. I'll get started. So here we go. I'll get started here. All right, Luke. So I wanted to ask you, man, it's you started doing this work with me for a little while. We started the first phase, and this first phase has been really about dedicated towards you healing and getting your body to where it can stop sensing pain and warning you all the time from every movement that it perceives as a threat, which seemed like it was everything. Every movement seemed like a threat at the time. But I wanted to pick your brain, man. When you first came to see me, I remember our assessment call very vividly. But when you first talked to me, what were some of the things you were dealing with before you got on that call? What was going on in your body?
It was fatigue with extensive activity, and if I could do that activity, it was pain the day after. It was severe neck pain. These weird like signals, like we've always talked about, where I guess it's weird to understand, but I guess my body was sensing it as a threat, or just it wasn't responding, and it just didn't see that thing or whatever that may be as safe. I'm still understanding that process, but there were some weird signals at times that like kind of debilitated the function and your ability to perform and do things you wanted to do just naturally. And a lot of oxygen, it felt like I was oxygen deprived to a great degree. Like I could not do work at the office without being fatigued, with feeling like just I had to force my breath. And with my kids, I was also felt those weird neurological symptoms. So that was kind of the baseline. And also just emotionally, I wasn't present at times sometimes.
Yeah, because you're probably dealing with all the sensations in your body. It was hard to be present, I would imagine. Before all of that, in school and when you're competing athletically, your main sport was wrestling. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
So with wrestling, when you were competing athletically and at your top, I know you were telling me how that affected your neck, because a lot of the positions were like you digging in, you're digging your shoulder into the other person, you're in these awkward angles. Talk about some of those angles that you had to be in wrestling. You're wrestling guys that are like twice your size too, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, multiple different angles. I mean, your head's trapped in different spots. I was definitely up. I strained my neck several times when we were doing neck bridges in practice, and I got tons of tightness within my trap, where you're just bridged up on the posterior aspect of your head, and you're supposed to just stabilize yourself and just come up and twist. Just definitely did mess my neck up with those situations. Sorry.
Yeah. So given the way you started, I know you incurred some neck issues, and then it became stressful to the point where it was perceiving threat all the time. And then it started affecting your emotional health, started affecting your family, your kids, everything. And you started, I know you started some stuff on your own. You started looking at the nutritional aspect, the wellness aspect. Talk about that a little bit. Like what got you into the wellness piece of it before we even go into like what we did together?
I mean, the basic is I had kind of like 7 years of fatigue. And then I had doing surgery nonstop in extreme environments and not eating for anywhere from 7-12 hours at times, or even multiple intervals. It was just consistent for 4 years. It just broke me down. And then had additional life stressors, moving from different states back and forth nonstop. I had sleep apnea. It's just my body, I was shut down. Like I had no fatigue, no drive, no energy, no emotion.
Dang.
So at one point, and I'm, with my background being in medicine, I had no clue what was going on. I searched multiple doctors, after labs, from every aspect. They said, you're fine. It got to the point to where I broke down in the ER.
Wow.
But we did an EKG, we did everything, and everything essentially was normal, and that drove me nuts. From that point, I think I went into a catabolic phase, to where my body broke down and ate itself, and just those symptoms were just horrible. That lasted several weeks, and then I started searching practitioners to help what was going on. Worked with some failures, a good amount of failures in the beginning. Definitely could say it was fails, but opened up my insight to what this process. Then I came across Josh Rubin, who helped me learn the nutritional aspect. And I thought it was just nutrition. I was like, my nutrition is horrible. But basically came to a knowledge of understanding of better nutrition, better fuel source, how to fuel your body appropriately. That was a life changer in itself. Just eating appropriately, eating the right food, learning how to eat frequency, learning the basics that I never learned as an athlete. There was some frustration, a lot of frustration with that.
Sure.
Just because I was like, if I could have done this like years ago and just ate appropriately, like I probably would have been 1,000 times better.
And you were already a beast, taking down guys twice your size. So imagine if you had this stuff like down packed, you'd be like,
oh my gosh.
oh yeah,
I mean, it would be a game changer. I probably would have been a national athlete or something. I don't know. I would have been a top of the top. I was pretty good. I never was at the peak, but my nutrition was nothing. I had, going back in the day, I never ate one piece of fruit for recovery after a crazy match. So
that's so interesting, man. Go ahead. You're finishing your thought.
Just the concepts and the knowledge I learned from the appropriate nutrition and what you're actually doing to your body. I mean, I probably had no energy, no ATP, nothing. Like, it was just plummeted. It was ridiculous. But it was a breakthrough with the information I learned, and how to, I guess, ultimately what brought me, I knew after I was done, I guess with Josh, there's another component I'm learning right now that I'm continuing to learn, is the minerals of the body. But that's a slow process. But it was learning how to deal with your body, how to understand, to see what your body needs to heal. And the pain I was experiencing, I knew there was another piece missing still. So that brought me into keep searching and searching and searching. And I wasn't done. I knew I never would quit until I understood the process. So I had residual symptoms, residual nervousness, not nervousness. I really don't know how to describe it sometimes. It's just being not at ease. That
Someone,
brought me into trying to understand more what was going on, because I knew my nutrition was on point. Like, I ate appropriately, I refueled. I mean, I know I had long surgery days, but I kept refueling. But I knew there was something off still in the body. Continue to listen to Josh's stuff and search through the minerals. But then he also made points about if you had, I mean, he's not really literally talking about a lesion, but I think he was talking more so like something hitting your nervous system nonstop, then your body would be in a constant state of fight or flight. And I was like, that has to be me. I was like, there's so much pain in my body that I have just been immune to it. And I was like, I need to shut it off, because how can my body be at rest if my neck feels like it's going to pop off like a vice?
wow.
So that's what brought me to continue to research. And then I was listening to Matt Blackburn's podcast, and that's where I came about your voice. And I tried some of your moves, and I knew there was profound weakness in certain areas, and I tried them as I was literally listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's something here, and I view the body completely differently now as a medical practitioner. It's not individual based. I know the whole process is linked together. So I guess in a nutshell, that's how I came about seeking your consult.
You know, what's interesting is to look back at that as a reflection for both of us. Is like you started as an athlete, high intensity athlete, like really like pushing it hard, wrestling guys twice your size, giving it everything you've got, pushing through probably pain, like all of us did. I did too. Like I pushed through a lot of pain. And then it's like later on you realize, oh man, did I have the capacity to even train at that intensity? Did my internal environment have the capacity to do so? And that's a cool reflection you just had. And this like brings me to the whole pyramid thing I've shown you before. I'm starting to show all my new athletes is like this first rung right here is like, do you have this piece? And you can take this rung and then make it its own pyramid, like you've like broken down that wellness piece into like, okay, minerals. You've broken it down into, okay, timing. Okay, you broke down into like, what kind of macros do I have to eat? Every little piece you've broken down from that one rung, and that's its own pyramid in and of itself. And then you moved into this one. This is like what we've been focusing on together, you and I, for a while. And now we're starting to move into this, which is like exciting. But you can see how each thing would be necessary to build the capacity for the next, to get to this elite like performance where you're not always worried about pain, about hurting yourself. You're just kind of in flow with movement. So I just wanted to reflect on that and be like, yeah, man, this makes sense that you went on your own hero's journey. You started doing this stuff, which I'm excited for you to start sharing your stuff, man. I'm excited for you to share your journey, because you went from athlete to working in the hospital as a medical provider, seeing all these people dealing with stuff, working countless hours in the OR, and now you had a different stressor. First, you had like imminent threat that someone might break my neck, and then you had that signaling was probably still there as you went to the hospital. And the stress was, okay, patients, coworkers. Then you have to deal with family. Then you have to deal with moves. So that now becomes the perceived threat that never ended from the first threat, which was the neck. I just kept going like this, but I just wanted to share that because I thought it was just interesting, because I've dealt with similar stuff too, with the threat that I perceived when I was young never really went away because I didn't give it a chance. I didn't do this first rung. I didn't do the second rung. But yeah, would you say that's fair? Fair to say?
Completely. And if it was, I mean, not that it was, I mean, a good, what do you think? I mean, there's a large portion where it was my C-spine, right? And then the posture of doing surgery and then being over, and then just not having that time to understand that, and just because that pain literally was debilitating within my neck.
So in terms, go ahead.
I mean, if I sought every option to just relieve that pain. And
Mm.
I mean, even in the process, I had to go over that in my head just to clear it out, because as I went through in the beginning with you, I called them, I still call them healing pains, because I had to, my body, like, I just trusted the process, all right, medically. I literally think my spine is realigning, so I just have to let the pain be there. And it would go lumbar, thoracic, cervical. It kept going back and forth. I had so much pain, but for the most part now, like, all the neck pain has literally subsided. And if it does occur, I can shut it off.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
And the muscles in the, where I had literally, like, I felt like I had no muscle in my mid back. Like, I can feel it start to come,
That's
to regenerate. And the goal, I think, would just be, not that I'm going to be an elite athlete again. I mean, to a degree, I mean,
yes.
I don't care about that. I do want to be there, but I want to be a present father. I want my body to be at peace. I want it just life to flow.
Yeah, and like for you, performance might be just what you said. Like that is your elite performance.
Working, but that's working also like 12 hours in surgery at a time. That's high level. And then going home to be at peace, letting your body not being at pain. That's more for me also flowing.
100%. That makes sense, man. So yeah, I think we started to look at just this conversation so far. We started to look at how this was impacting your life, and it seemed like it was impacting a lot of factors, like your work, your emotions, your family. Um, and I would imagine, like you said, it was hard for you to feel things because it makes sense. Like if I was feeling that much pain, which I did, I started to shut off. I was like, well, shoot, I just need to be a robot, accept that this pain is there somewhere in the system. Okay, there it is, shut down. Because if I focus on it too much, I'm going to start to get stressed out about it. So that makes sense that you had to do that. It was like a protective mechanism. I was like, if I kept feeling into my pain, I would just be more and more depressed. But that's
Completely.
crazy, bro. So we started, yeah, we started together, and it was quite the interesting journey for me too as a coach, because I was watching you go through those like growing pains, and some of it was crazy and like uncontrollable. As we started doing this healing work, the first phase of training with us is what we call the bulletproofing phase now. We call it bulletproofing and wellness phase. That's what we were working on with you. So tell me a little bit about that experience. Like, how did, you came into it, you didn't have crazy expectations, you trusted the process, but what are some things you noticed about your body as you started doing some of the movements we gave you in terms of your movement quality, your range of motion, confidence, sleep, energy? Just think about some of those things there. How did that start changing for you?
Well, I think the time frame was a blessing. Because one, my oxygen was zapped and this whole COVID thing happened.
Oh,
So I was like, how am I going to wear a mask all day, dictate, see patients, go back and forth, go to the OR, and feel oxygenized? The one thing that like was just amazing was just that the body, the nervous system, whatever, just the rib cage, the whole connection right here, and my face, my nose, whatever, I could just breathe, and it was more natural. It was just like oxygen was getting to my tissue, and it had to do with all the tissue work we did. I don't know what degree from all that crazy athletic performance I had, like my tissue was just calcified or whatever. But the oxygen to my system was just what game changing. It was just completely, it was perfect. It was great. And then from there, I had to deal with the neck issue and then the pain and understanding. But the oxygen and it felt like the nourishment was easier. Like it felt like the body, the energy, things are being utilized to a greater degree. Don't understand the full process. I will at some point understanding it, because I do want to learn more and more. But it was just the nourishment of the body and oxygen.
That's awesome.
That
So
was the
that was,
main thing in the beginning. That was just like, oh, I'm so glad.
because I mean that was impacting your sleep too. Like you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Sleep.
And then yeah, sleep was shut. Sleep was, it wasn't horrible,
Yeah.
but my wife would always say I rotate a lot in sleep, or I'll snore in the beginning, and then at some point I'll shut off. Like, it just kept getting better and better, slowly over time. I guess the diaphragm will learn to be at ease and be calm, and just open up and more expand, and the whole right side was just locked down. We're still getting it to just stay, letting both sides expand equally. In my mind is a huge goal when that occurs, just without doing anything aggressive or forcing it. It'd be very pleasant. But sleep has been more peaceful. Resting whenever I want to throughout the day has been at ease as well. Very, very huge factors when I think about the whole process and the stressors that affected my body. Just narrowing each one of them down at a time. But that oxygen, that nutrition, and that sleep it was felt great in the beginning.
And then as you're moving on, like what did you notice about your movement quality? Like moving through different movements, like even the basic stuff, like moving your arm overhead, push-ups, hanging, pull up. What did you notice about some of your movements, just like the basic patterns? How did you see that shift?
Tremendously, even from just being outside, walking around my kids, bending over, teaching them to ride a bike. My hips and everything, I can't believe how tight I am. This is crazy. But the quality drastically improved over time. Just going overhead, it's at ease now. Still engaging those muscles, because I'm sure they haven't been working in that pattern for years. But in the beginning, they didn't want to do any of that at all. Just trying to relax them and get them there. It's huge change.
I remember that, man. I remember like how like we would attempt to do like a corrective movement or an exercise, and your body would be like, "Whoa, like what is that?" You know, it would spasm and say, "What are we doing here? You know, is this safe?" And that's how I see, because I'd seen spasms like that, never like at the C-spine level, but I've seen spasms at the hip and at the obliques and ribs. So to me, in my brain, I was like, I hadn't seen a C-spine one before, but it seems like the same concept, which was like, okay, he's spasming. So we just have to keep creating that safety in his shoulder blade and the back of his neck to allow his nervous system to have some coherence around that. It's like, oh, this is safe. I thought that this was safe. And so now we're shifting that
Right.
the whole idea. So that was really cool for me to witness, because you were going through it. I know it was uncomfortable. I know you were like, man, this is weird. And to me, I was just like excited to be like there watching you in your journey, because I was like, he's figuring this stuff. I can see his neurons like firing in his brain. He's figuring this shit out. But yeah, and that's
And
one. Go ahead.
it still happens at times. I'm like, you know what? Like, we just relaxing the body, engaging it, and then it's gone. It's weird. Still weird. Going back, thinking about it, I'm like, literally, is my body doesn't think this is safe. It's crazy. It was just a weird concept, which correlated to all other stressors potentially. But definitely weird feeling. Going back, even thinking about it. But I'm glad it occurred.
I remember how violent it was on the assessment when I was like sitting with you. I remember that day. I was like, man, that is really intense. And then as you went on, what I noticed as your coach was like, oh, it's getting less and less intense. It's like it's still weird, but like now it seemed like more of your entire body was moving.
Mhm.
Before it was just C-spine. It was like, God, God. Then it started to be like spine, hips moving with the neck. And to me, that was already a good sign. I was like, okay, and then his body's trying to help his neck, which is what it needed all along. Like even in wrestling, when he went up against someone, like he needed his upper back, he needed his shoulders, he needed his abs, but he got into some positions where it was hard to get it. So that's why his neck was getting, like that. And then over time, that was just never addressed. So the body was like, I guess this is where we're going to be. That was really cool for me to see how your whole body started to come into play. The whole fascia was trying to integrate and say, oh, you're not alone, neck. You're not alone in this game. I'm here with you. So that was kind of cool for sure. And then I guess I wanted to know too, you know, even with your emotional state and your confidence, how did that change?
It was some of a battle.
Mm-hmm.
It was a battle, and just irritating at times, because I didn't want it to be.
Mm.
But I mean, I guess it makes you only human. You gotta just remember that that you're not perfect. But I used to think as myself as perfect. But and just things that, like, when I got there, I mean, I still learned to catch myself. Because I guess your nervous system remembers, and you just got to take control of it.
Mm.
It was a battle, and in the beginning, it was very frustrating because it was just my whole mental thinks of this whole entire thing as trauma, and each
Mm.
time my brain was like, "You're still healing. You're still healing." Like, it's just what you're doing is you're trying to heal. You're not healed. You're not living. You're not thriving yet. And there comes a point where I do new things. I know I'm creating more safety to the body, more resilience to the body, but like back in my brain is like, you're still healing. You're still healing. I'm like, and then I have to like take time because I was really good at some point when I had time to just
Mm.
sit there and just focus on what I've overcome. Because like I still remember like when I really have a bad time, or like not. I mean, I don't have a bad time anymore. It's just a moment. I remember me being in medicine. I had the consult with Josh Rubin. I had a freaking pulse ox, and my sats were low as anything. I was satting like at 60s at some point. My heart rate was
Wow.
laying on the floor. My heart rate was in the 40s. And I was like, I'm effed. I was like, I have no idea what's happening. I
Mm.
heard all these things about like nervous system dysfunction. I was just, but now it's just like, that's in the past. I have healed. I'm not healing anymore. I'm just becoming more resilient. And
Yeah.
then my brain wants to go back there, and it's a fight. It's not always easy at times,
Mhm.
just because there was years of fatigue and years of, I guess, mental and emotional trauma. Because when you're giving so much, seeing patients, doing surgery, trying to be the dad the best you can,
Mhm.
and you can't, or you're not emotionally there, it's tough.
Mm.
So when I had time to sit there and journal or focus or just recap, things were good, but things are
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting part to me because when people think about trauma or injury, they think of it such a linear path. They're like, okay, this is the trauma, this is the knee problem, this is the neck issue. I'm gonna go from knee problem to back to playing my sport 100%. And they're just like, they don't see all this interplay between the brain, the nervous system, the heart, the hormones, all the things that are happening at once. And it makes sense to me because like even in other injuries that I see, knee, ankle, hip, right? It's the same stuff. Like the brain still thinks. It goes, even though the knee is actually safe, the brain's like, but wait, I should probably put my foot like this, right? Because if I put my foot like that, that's when it causes pain. And then I was like, no, just do it. And they're like, oh, it actually feels great. I'm like, yeah. And that's a hard thing because the brain has had to train itself to do that. Like it's had to. And to unwire a motor pattern that's attached to a body sensation, that takes work. And like you said, like time was an issue. So you have to, like when you sat down and made time and felt your body somatically, you're like, oh, this is actually okay. Okay, this is my old thought. I was healing. I've healed a lot. Now it's just time to keep creating resilience and strength, but it's still there. And that's the fascinating thing about it. You know, that's, I see it all the time, but it makes sense. And people that are listening to this right now, watching this, I think that's something you should take to heart, because people just think they should be able to go from knee injury, for example, to then jumping like 10 feet tall. And I'm like, you know, there's a lot that goes into the game there. You got to look at the brain. You got to look at your emotional system. You have to look at your mental system. You have to really learn how to somatically sense. And tell me about that. I want to know about that because that was kind of wild for you when you started doing some of the somatic sensing exercises I gave you. What was that like?
Oh man. I'm just checking my phone. A little battery's a little dead, I think. That was very interesting. Sorry.
You're good.
Weird. I haven't had a chance to read and study and become aware, but weird.
Mm.
I still, I don't know. I still spasm. Freaking body grunts. But then at some point, like my it's weird. Like it'll be done. My body will smile. Like I'll smile on my own, and everything will contract. Like everything will come online. I'm like, this is weird. But literally every muscle in my body will just go like charge up. I'm like, this is just weird. And then I just like laugh because that feeling, it feels so good. Even
have you ever watched?
It takes time. I just literally focusing on a time frame to get there, just to let it come, let it stay, let it take effect. But it's weird.
And those of you that are watching this too, what we mean by somatic sensing is learning how to sense like feelings in your body, and that comes down to like looking at your peripheral environment and being able to relax into the periphery and breathe and feel each muscle. And the charge. I was going to ask you, Luke, have you ever watched like Dragon Ball Z with your kids?
Yeah.
So it reminds me of like when you said charge up, it's like when they become a Super Saiyan and they like start to feel all these like crazy powerful contractions.
My feet. Sorry, keep going.
You go ahead.
I mean, it's even weird. I mean, just like, because I used to be, flat-footed and just orthotics. My whole entire foot just comes on. It's just weird. It just feels like my foot just recreates itself. I'm like, geez, man, this is so weird.
It's like you tapped into your superpower. It was like boom, and all of a sudden, bam, everything fires up.
Literally, it's still a feeling that I'm getting used to, and I'm not even. I'm trying to take it more into situations where, like during the whole, sorry, I'm seeing my charger 1 second.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just charging this one phone up. Sorry.
You're good.
There was a point working and doing surgery nonstop and being on call for 7 days. Not that it was my wife's fault or whatever. She did, she left and traveled to Maryland or traveled to New York 3 days out of the week. And then my boys became my stressor. My boys became a signal. So that was like almost damn near one of the most frustrating aspects, because it was family life. And family life shouldn't be literally a trigger. So my boys became a trigger. And that pissed me off like no other. A lot. So now I do that somatic exercise with them in the room, and my jaw relaxes. My boys just go, but anywhere I'll use it where my body just feels on at ease, and I'm like, I'm gonna screw you right now and just kill it. So I'll do it at that instant in life, because that's my playing field is life. That's how I view this whole thing of just destroying all the mental thoughts I've ever had or read with people on chronic fatigue, Olympic athletes, like having crazy cortisol levels and it never coming down. I'm like, it's life and I'm going to use it and I'm going to kill any stressor that comes across it. And my body will be at ease and I'm going to rid all of these sensations that are even associated with my kids. So I take it to wherever I need it.
That's powerful, man. I mean, that's choice right there. That's agency to mold it in however you need it to. That's powerful. I mean, like you said so poignantly over there, is like you take it towards, as an athlete, you can take it towards, okay, I'm stuck in this stressful situation. You can zone into this space of, all right, it's okay, I can figure out what I need to do. Blah, 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 blah. Or you take it into your kids or your family or your workplace. Like that is, I mean, that's like just pure, that's human physiology right there. And I think it's often overlooked. I think it's becoming more present in the industry and in the health industry, but I'm glad you said it that way, because I think a lot of people feel like they're a slave to these like thoughts and the bodily sensations that are happening. And sometimes I've had my own stuff with that, like even in relationships and situations where I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm giving, like you said, giving like just provider energy, provide.
Right.
And then you're just like, anything that's a threat, you're like, oh shoot, this person wants more. Like I'm giving everything I got. Like, and the same can be in a sport where it's like you're trying to like get past a defender, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm like, my hip cannot turn that way, but I'm gonna have to do it. And it's stressful, and it makes your body feel like everything is stressful. But that's cool, man. It's cool to see how you molded this to what you need. And you just took it as a template. I think that's what also makes this relationship really good, is because I can just give you a template and then you take it, you experiment, you play, you get your own insights, you give me insights and I learn, and then we just keep going back and forth. That's cool, man. I think one thing I wanted to know is going into the strength part now, like as we start creeping into strength and conditioning, which we started doing. Now you're playing with like the weights, and you're playing with like getting hip hinges, and you're coming back to pull-ups, and I can already tell from the screen, it looks like your shoulders have gotten bigger. It looks like your arms have gotten bigger too, your pecs. Yeah, everything looks more robust again. So going into strength and conditioning, what are some of your expectations? What are some things you are looking forward to? What are some things you think might happen? Because we're going to do this again after strength and conditioning.
I expectations. That's a good statement. A good word to describe stuff. Just because doing surgery, I make sure patients' expectations are met. And like, because sometimes they think it's the magic cure. I'm gonna have surgery, I'm gonna have no pain. That's just how I'm correlating to my life, and just I'm expecting some trials and errors. I'm expecting probably to get ready to know that my emotions are going to want to kick me in the butt. But after some time, whatever that may be, I'm expecting more growth, more cardiovascular strength, more endurance, and more control over my emotions after, because I won't be able, because I don't get that time to sit. I hear a lot of people say they're healing and they spend like this much time by themselves in a quiet room, or they're outside, they get to do this and that. And I'm up from 6 a.m. and I go to bed at midnight or 11, and I'm like, how am I going to heal? I just take it with me. So as the body gets stronger and I am able to feel more, I feel that my body will be at ease, and that my parasympathetic will take effect, and my body will be able to function more as I not just get stronger. I think as the whole body gets resilient and functions together. So I guess, and I would expect in the long run, after some up and downs, that my mid back will stay solid, and that will be a glorious time for him.
Yes, dude, I'm looking forward to that. I have more things to show you, of course. It's a never-ending experimentation up here at the headquarters here. But you know, I after we get off this, I actually do want to show you something real quick with the feet. That's going to help you with the neck. Believe it or not, there's one thing I wanted to add. I'm going to add it to everyone's True Coach, but I wanted to show it to you live so you could see how it changes things upstream. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to see how you do with strength and conditioning too. I think this is going to be more of the interesting, how much can I now push and create resiliency, like you said, but also I'm looking forward to where little things like, I don't know, picking up something off the ground, throwing your kids around, shoot, like even jumping for whatever reason, just because you had to, like you jump over a puddle of water. This is the most simple of things become second nature, where you're not like, oh, will my neck be jarred? Oh, will I have this? That's what I'm really looking forward to, is that sense of just like, I'm good, you know, I'm solid.
I'm looking forward. I'm really looking forward for my right scap to just come inwards and stay. I'm looking for my right scap to see to safety and just stick there. That will be awesome.
Yeah. Well, awesome, bro. Thanks for doing this. We'll do this again after strength and conditioning is done. And when that's over, we'll review that. And then after that, we'll go into performance and we'll review that. And after performance, you know, then you choose what you want. You do what you want. Like if you want to go do something interesting with your life, you want to try a sport again, or you just want to just be a father and you know, perform in the OR, whatever you want. But I think I always want you to get to that choice, that point of choice. That's what I want for you. Yeah.
Be awesome.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I'm going.
Thank you. Always.
I'm gonna take this off the live stream.